Hello everyone, this is CinemaBigWaves. Today we want to talk about one of the most interesting series aired these days, 1899, which is recently broadcasted on Netflix, has already gained many fans. Let's see what this attractive and well-made series wants to say and what theories there are about it. If you haven't watched the series yet, I warn you that this video is full of spoilers. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe for more. Well, let's get going.
6 hours ago, we received a message. We believe this comes from the Prometheus.
You think the passengers, they're still alive?
Il a coulé. C'est la seule explication possible, sinon on l'aurait retrouvé.
Bien, an den Kurs.
If you are a television fan, you have probably seen the Dark series. Dark started airing in 2017, and it was so attractive that many people have still awesome theories about it. For the fans of Dark series, the news that 1899 is being produced by the same creators was very exciting, and many people were waiting for it. 1899 finally aired a couple weeks ago, and it satisfied Dark fans and added new fans to them. 1899, like Dark, has a mysterious atmosphere, along with many plot twists and extremely attractive scenes, and God knows that it was needed these days. Both theories have the highest technical quality, especially in the field of filming, music, direction, and script, and both theories have wonderful actors. Both Dark and 1899 built their story materials on a platform of pseudo-scientific and science fiction issues to explore human relationship and discover human nature. Both have a number of main characters that are not related to each other at first, but gradually it becomes clear that they have complex and deep relationships with each other, and the viewer slowly gets to know them. The characters in both stories do anything and commit any crime to achieve their own desires and selfishness. One of the main story motifs of both theories is repetition that the character is involved in, and it seems as if it's not possible to get out of it. There has been a lot of talk about repetition in Dark series, and we will talk about it in this video about 1899 later on. Each episode of 1899 starts with the memory of one of the main characters and the camera that comes out of his or her eyes and wakes up with a voice that tells them to wake up. Of course, at the end of episode 8, the only place where the camera goes into the character's eyes is probably where it is meant to go, to reality or another level of simulation program. Awakening is another motif of the series, and the Book of Awakening, which was published in 1899 and we see it in a scene, confirms this. The Book of Awakening is a story about the behaviors and changes that will occur in the new century for women. Now, let's see what we can say about the subtext layers of this fascinating series and what this season is about. Stay on with us. The story of 1899 is about a passenger ship named Kerberos that left Europe to America. On her way, she meets another ship named Prometheus, which has traveled this route before and was lost for 4 months, which has now been found in a strange way. When the shipping company learns about this accident, it orders to sink the Prometheus, but the captain decides to go to Prometheus with a few people and find out what happened. This decision causes a series of strange events for the characters of the story. Finally, we realize that all the events are actually a big simulation, and apparently, in reality, the people inside the ship are moving to an unknown destination in a spaceship. The authors probably got the idea to write the story from the story of the ship Marie Celeste, which was lost in 1872, and when it was found, there was no sign of ship's crew. The entire crew disappeared and was never found. In 1899, we have a ship and a spaceship. Both have the same passengers. One is moving to America and the other one to an unknown destination. We don't know much about the spaceship right now. But according to the comparison of two ships, it can be said that this spaceship is probably moving to a new planet to build a better future, like the Kerberos ship, which is moving to a new continent and a new land to build a better future. In the story of 1899, unknown people decided to conduct experiments on the human mind and designed this simulation in a way to find out if it is possible to change human, so that the events do not repeat themselves every time. In other words, is it possible to prevent history from repeating itself? The underlying issue of the series is almost this theme, and the rest of the elements of the story are arranged in order to complete and address this issue. This is probably the reason for choosing the name of the series. 1899 is the last year of 19th century and the beginning of the new era, a century when man caused the death of millions of people and many crimes with the World War and etc. This series showed a history of exploring the human mind, as its main character, Moira Franklin, is a female neuroscientist who works on its function and is not allowed to dissect it because she's a woman.
Ich bin ihr begegnet. Vorgestern.
In the series, a working of human minds, regardless of gender, race and nationality, is discussed. If you pay attention to the symbol of the series, which is unlikely to haven't been seen with so many repetitions, you will see a triangle with a line crossed at the bottom. If you look at this symbol the other way around, we have an iceberg, a small part of which is outside the water and the larger part of it is underwater, which cannot be seen but exists. This model is used in psychoanalysis to explain the system of consciousness and unconsciousness. The upper part of the iceberg that is outside the water represents the self-consciousness, the part we know as consciousness and includes everything we know about ourselves, such as desires or interests or identity. The lower part of the iceberg that is underwater and we don't know about it, but it exists in our unconscious mind. The part that dedicated the main part of our mind to itself. This part includes all the things that we don't know about ourselves, but they guide us, like instincts. 1899 is investigating that a lot of our behaviors as human is completely instinctive and unconscious, and we only have the illusion of conscious choice. Basically, the simulation and loop in this series challenge the power of human choice. This time, can these people overcome their instincts and make wise decisions based on self-awareness? Or will they be trapped by their past, repeat previous choices and not learn from it? Is beautifully depicted. Although it is still not possible to say for sure that the past that we see from the characters are real, it can be said that the creators of the series know that the only way to get out of repeating history is self-knowledge. If persons cannot know themselves properly, they will repeat the same history again. In 1899, issues such as gender and gendered view, class perspective, religion and the effect it has on humans are among the thematic motifs of the series. Even though the people inside the ship are of different races and nationalities and speak different languages, their brains work the same. It is interesting to know that the name of Prometheus, the lost ship that is found at the beginning of the story, is taken from a Greek legend who takes the fire of knowledge from the gods and brings it to ordinary people and informs humans. The gods also punish him and he gets caught in a loop and suffers forever. It seems that the author is trying to direct the viewer's mind to the issue of awareness and knowledge. Understanding the human mind, in addition to the field of psychology that is explored in the series, has also been discussed in an older field, and that is philosophy. The series talks about the allegory of Plato's cave. For those who have not heard Plato's allegory of the cave, I will tell you very quickly and briefly what it is. Plato's allegory of the cave is a concept to ruminate on the nature of belief versus knowledge. The allegory begins with prisoners who have lived their entire lives chained inside a cave. Behind the prisoners is a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners are people carrying puppets or other objects. These cast shadows on the opposite wall. The prisoners watch these shadows, believing this to be their reality, as they've known nothing else. When a prisoner could become free, he finally sees the fire and realizes the shadows are fake. This prisoner could escape from the cave and discover there is a whole new world outside they were previously unaware of. This prisoner would believe the outside world is so much more real than that in the cave. He would try to return to free the other prisoners. Upon his return, he is blinded because his eyes are not accustomed to actual sunlight. The chained prisoners would see this blindness and believe they will be harmed if they try to leave the cave. Well, in this allegory, Plato tried to show us the mechanism of what we think is reality and what is actually reality. In the series, we see that the characters in the story think that they are experiencing reality, but in reality they are living in a big simulation, and the reality is probably the spaceship in which they are trapped. Of course, according to the history of the creators of the series in Dark, there is a possibility that it is not reality and that it is a simulation within another simulation. In this way, 1899 is very reminiscent of the Matrix trilogy. There, people were imprisoned all their lives in containers and they were shown an illusion of reality, which was actually the Matrix, but the reality of the world was something else. The opening credits also related to the story of Alice in Wonderland, which, like Mora, is looking for a white rabbit from another world. If you remember, The Matrix also had a reference to the story of Alice, and Morpheus texted Neo to follow the white rabbit. Also, traces of the history of the French philosopher René Descartes can be seen in the story. Descartes, who is also mentioned as the origin of modern thought, has a famous theory that says, let's assume that everything we see and hear is whispered in our ears by the devil and placed in front of our eyes. So, everything can be doubted, but until we are doubting everything, we exist. That is, there is a self that is doubting everything at the moment. This theory is known as Cartesian doubt. In the series, we see many times that Mora doubts everything, but she knows that she is real. That's why in the first scene, when she wakes up, she says to herself in front of the mirror, I am Mora Franklin. She understood that everything may be an illusion, but she is real. Mora's certainty about herself makes her feelings for her son certain, and she can rely on something in this world. Another philosophical issue discussed in the series, which also has a social dimension, is the issue of class, which is mostly discussed in Marx theories. How the bourgeois class and the working class, which in the series are really in two separate decks and on top of each other, have two different mental worlds. In the series, we see how bourgeois class does not care about the working class, except for Mora and Uncle. The working class hates the bourgeois class because they feel that they have stolen what is rightfully theirs. One of the Marx famous saying is that religion is the opium of the people, and we see that the working class, especially Iben and her family, take refuge in religion to console them and compensate for their failures. Of course, gradually during the series, I see that this class loses its faith in God and embarks on a proletarian revolution, or the revolution of the working class, to take its rights from the bourgeois class. 1899, besides addressing these issues, also tries to say that humans may have differences based on the class system, but in more important issues, they think and act in the same way. That's why at the end of the season, we see a group that stays together and lives a healthy life, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, race and class. All of them have a past that they run away from, and try to survive and escape from the situation in which they are caught. You can still talk about more about the series, and you can enter it from different angles, but that's all I could understand for now. The first season of the series ended with all the surprises and story twists, with answered questions and of course with more questions created. Considering the history of creators in previous series, we should probably expect a more complicated and strange season in the future. I hope this video was useful for you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Thank you for being with us.